General Spider Marks, Board of Advisors for Sparta Science. Absolutely my pleasure to be a part of this team. Spent 34 years in the military. Clearly, fitness in the military is a combat multiplier. That's why I'm so excited about Sparta, because it can really make a difference in our military's ability to perform those really vast and very different tasks in today's world, where we have young men and women deployed in all time zones all the time. Because clearly there are some amazing applications when you look at the military. The military is all about readiness. You have an organization, and is that organization ready to do its intended task? It's a human endeavor, so you always have challenges with that. Sparta can address some of those challenges that address readiness. And if it's integrated appropriately and embraced, you can just raise the readiness level. So you, as a taxpayer, want to know that your military is ready 24/7, 365 to do what you pay them to do. Sparta can facilitate directly to help achieve that mission. My personal experience is I was commissioned out of West Point, and after the initial training that you receive, I went to airborne school, went to ranger school, and had the opportunity to serve in a number of infantry units. Just picture those guys that are out there on the horizon doing some incredible stuff in defense of our nation's freedom, and became an intelligence officer. So I then became the guy who had to understand what was taking place in those locations that are generally at risk, and how do you better prepare them for those engagements. So I did that all over the world. I was the senior intelligence officer in places like the Horn of Africa, I was in the Balkans, I was in Korea, I was in Iraq when we went to war back in 2003. I was also the senior intelligence officer during the LA riots. So I had this collection of experiences. What the military is trying to do with Sparta is embrace the notion of a different approach toward physical preparedness, again, what leads to overall unit readiness. Sparta is so incredibly precise in terms of how it evaluates you, in terms of how you move as a soldier, or as a service member, or as an athlete. And through that evaluation can now put you on a path that more precisely prepares you for those tasks that we're asking you to perform. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. The military physical training is essentially, understand the military, it's a large organization. You have the Air Force, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Army, tons and tons of people, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people out there. And generally what we do for physical readiness is one-size-fits-all. Because how do you deliver that to a large organization? It's very difficult to be very, very precise. With Sparta, you can be precise without taking a huge amount of time. You can achieve better results more quickly and more precisely for what we're asking you to do. Sparta can get service members better prepared. They can't eliminate injury, but they can help reduce injury. And then when an injury occurs, you can then you can scale and decrease the amount of time for recovery. So that soldier, let's just say on a team of 10, if 3 are not available, you're going into combat with a 70% strength. That's not a good idea. So what'll happen is, ideally with Sparta, is you're going to increase the availability of those entire 10 soldiers, or SEALs, or service members, or airmen, or Marines to go into combat. That's always what you want to do. You don't want to go into a fair fight. You want to go into a fight and you want to be able to overpower and overwhelm your opponent. This is a way to do that. When you look at what we ask the soldier or the ground soldier, the ground Marine, the SEAL to do as a matter of routine, you have body armor, you have the individual load. So if you weigh 175 pounds, you're probably carrying an additional 40 pounds just to show up, not to participate. Nobody's blown a whistle. Nobody has said, let's engage. That's just to show up. That's enhanced protection and enhanced capability. So that additional 35 pounds is not going anywhere except where you go. So you have those additional stresses, as you can well imagine, that occur on your ankles, that occur on your knees, that occur on your shoulders and elbows. And then you have the intellectual or the mental drain that occurs, because what you want to do is get out of that 35 pounds, but the second you do, you now become a risk. So you got to be able to perform at that increased demand. The military has a requirement. Every 6 months, every service member must pass his or hers service physical fitness test, irrespective of age. If you're injured, then they just push out the amount of time it takes until you recover from whatever your injury is. But on a every 6-month basis, you are being evaluated. What I determined, even as a very young man, and I always thought I kept myself in pretty good shape and physically prepared, is that I could gut my way through that test. I could make it through. Intellectually, I could drive through whatever the objective was. That wasn't a fair evaluation of my fitness because I just intellectually overcame objectives and made it happen. What Sparta does, it's totally agnostic. It's data-driven. You can't spoof the data. You can't overwhelm the data. Sparta tells you exactly where you are and where your weaknesses and vulnerabilities are, and then concomitantly provides you a program to address those. It's absolutely magical. There's no subjectivity to the test. And so it makes perfect sense for the military that has literally hundreds of thousands of folks deployed all over the globe, 24/7, in all time zones, an opportunity to get a really fair, very precise, agnostic, foolproof evaluation of where you are in terms of your availability to do your job. And then it gives you a solution to enhance that. Sparta serendipitously integrated into the military through the special ops world. I mean, that just kind of happened. A special operations unit was working out in a facility where a local college was working out with Sparta, and they saw the capability. They experimented with the capability, and some senior leaders had a chance to scratch and sniff, touch and feel Sparta, and they became disciples. And they said they wanted to make this a part of their organization. So that was an organic kind of a growth for Sparta. But as a result of that, it got into the special operations world. And as a result of that, it has just blossomed within the special operations world. And the key thing about the military is if the special operations community conducts either training or equipment buying or facilitation of certain types of activities, the rest of the surface will follow. All the services will follow what the special ops community does because they realize the level of scrutiny, professionalism, focus, and dedication to get the task done. Then the rest of the military will pile on. So Sparta is catching on in the special operations community. That's a great thing because the rest of the services will follow. Statistically, what is happening is enhanced availability of all the personnel and all of the, what I would call all of those criteria for readiness evaluation are being met at a higher standard. And more importantly, it is the recovery from injuries. With Sparta, the amount of time to recover has been reduced. You know, we all have our own definition of resilience. I think Mr. Webster probably has the declaratory and acknowledged definition of resilience, but I look at resilience as the ability to take a hit, to take a blow, to be put under pressure, suffer a loss, and be able to power through that, whether that's a physical loss or whether that's an emotional loss, but being able to continue to sustain a level of performance and, in fact, under pressure, maybe increase that level of performance, even though there might be an element of emotional or physical pain associated with that. That's resilience. What Sparta gives you is the confidence in knowing what your vulnerabilities are and what you have done very, very precisely and in a very disciplined way to address those vulnerabilities. And when you've done that, by definition, you're going to be more resilient. Now, there's an emotional component to that, but the emotional component can either drive through physical limitations or an emotional component can lag behind your ability physically to do something. So I think it's a combination of those two. Not every service member is cut from the same cloth. You have some units and some individuals are motivated to a level that exceeds the requirements for that particular unit in the military. They then will raise the level of performance within those organizations. Folks will want to follow in that type of, follow that type of an example. What Sparta can give you is an individual's ability to really improve his or her physical performance relative to tasks that they have to perform. So as a result of that, the unit just is going to improve. Again, availability is enhanced, readiness is enhanced. So I think across the board, the military stands to really gain as a result of that. Now, of course, we still do physical training in all the services for a whole host of reasons. One of those reasons is morale. You want to get everybody together. You want to get everybody in the same formation. You want to get everybody moving in the same direction at a pace that everybody can sustain, and you want to feel good about yourself. And you want to be able to reach over to your buddy and say, I'm here for you. And here's a manifestation on a routine basis. Here's a manifestation of my bond and my love for you as my fellow service member. I can also then take that and then walk through a program that was established by Sparta. I now have really improved my individual skill sets, which makes my ability in that larger group that much more distinctive and that much more contributory to mission accomplishment. Young men and women, one of the sad states that we have in America today is that probably 80% of American youth cannot join, I say again, cannot join the military because they have physical limitations, they have obesity issues, they have sicknesses and illnesses, and then sometimes they have malfeasance and they have behavioral problems. 80%. That automatically narrows down the field of folks that can join the service. But still, within that 20%, we want to open our arms. We want to make this ecumenical. We want everybody who wants to be a part of the service to, and you can join this team, come join this team. And then we want you to make us better. You bring your talents. But let's be frank, it's not like a professional or a Division I athletic team where there is, as you've described, some self-selection, some natural biases that will come into place. And 10 people that show up are really world-class, those 10. In the military, that's not the case. What we have is a lot of young men and women that have a big heart, they have a desire to serve, and we need to raise that ability to serve because it's a physically demanding world. Fitness is a combat multiplier. If you're in better shape, you feel better about yourself. When you're put under stress, you're going to perform. That's what combat is all about. And I want combat multipliers. So I want to bring these young men and women in, and I want to be able to give them an opportunity to increase their level of confidence, really validate their decision to serve this great nation. Sparta can help do that. My view of the real differentiator with Sparta is that it can be an agnostic, data-driven solution to readiness, to fitness and readiness in all military units. Today, the only way we achieve that is every 6 months we give all of our service members a physical fitness test. That is one way to achieve a level of readiness, but that's not a very thorough or a very complete way to do that. Sparta can complement that requirement and get us to that next level. That becomes the game changer.